Hey everybody, and welcome to my very first crochet along. And I'm really happy to be able to bring this to you because I made one of these for my daughter I guess maybe about 3 years ago, and it was my very first sweater that I ever tried to design, and it didn't go out so well. I didn't test it on her as I made it, so she said that it bunched up underneath the shoulder, so I didn't make the top part correct. And also she said this was choking her, so it was up too high. And the material that I used out of it was just a regular worsted weight yarn, and she said it was really itchy, so she just didn't wear it. So I put it up for the longest time, and I decided to finally get back to it. So I used 3 colors for this tutorial, and these are soft baby yarn, and it's anti-pilling, which means it won't get fuzzy no matter how long the time has gone by. It should keep its look without getting all fuzzy. And I used 3 skeins of my main sweater color and only 1 skein of my flower color. And I as you can see, I used 3 different colors, and each skein of these is medium worsted weight yarn or Aryan 10 ply, and each skein is 100 grams, and they're 250 meters or 273 yards per skein. And I have a link to their site. You can find it on the pattern page, and it'll tell you how to get this kind of yarn for yourself, and you can choose other colors. You don't have to go the same that I have, though on the pattern I do have links directly to these exact colors that I used if you want to do the same colors that I did. For this project, you're also going to need, very important, you're going to need a tapestry needle, because whenever you're making the flowers especially, you're going to have a lot of tails, so be prepared you're going to be using this a lot. But I recommend that you hide your tails right off the bat. Don't wait for some big project at the end of hiding all your tails. You're going to need at least 2 stitch markers, but I recommend, even just to be on the safe side, that you have 4 stitch markers. And they don't have to be fancy stitch markers. They can just be yarn of another color. Another thing that you need is your hooks. You're going to be using 2 size hooks. You're going to use a 5mm hook, size H hook, to make the top part of the sweater. And you're going to be using a 4mm hook, size G hook, to make your flowers. I'm going to be using my Crochet for the Masses Facebook page and share pictures and talk. If you need to ask questions or anything like that, you can go there, but really to share pictures. I would love to see this sweater in other colors and your flowers in other colors and everything. And you can find that link below. Also find the link below to the pattern page. That'll have all the information about the yarn and where you can find it, and also to links to each part of these tutorials and patterns and pictorials to all this. Okay, so for the very first tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to do these flowers. So go ahead and grab your 4mm hook, and you need all 3 of your colors for this. Okay, first off, I'm going to show you how to do the center and then add the color. Also, you're going to be needing a 4mm hook or size G hook. Okay, when you make your slip knots, always leave about 3 inches or so, just to make sure you have enough to sew in. And you're going to do this every single time you add yarn or remove yarn. Always leave about 3 inches, because this is a garment someone's going to wear, and you don't want tails sticking out. So you want to be able to hide them well. So to begin, you want to start by chaining 4. Then slip stitch into the very first chain, the top loop of the very first chain. And then slip stitch and go ahead and hold your chain at the bottom, so when you slip stitch you won't lose your hole you just created. Chain 1, and now working in this hole that you just created, you want to put 12 single crochets. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now you want to cut your yarn, leaving about 3 inches again, and that's our center. Now if you were just going to go ahead and continue, you wouldn't cut your yarn, you would just slip stitch in the very first single crochet, and then you would chain 3 and continue. But since we're going to be switching colors, what I do is I like to back out to my single crochet before I pull through my loop. Get my next color, and again leaving a little bit of tail here. I'm going to pull the new color through both those loops to finish my single crochet, and then I usually take both these tails here and I tie them, put a couple knots in there because I don't want those to come loose. Oh, I grabbed the wrong tail. I want to grab the tail that comes from my stitch. Okay. Okay, I got that one now. Okay, so you want to slip stitch in the first single crochet. If you're not sure which one it is, you can count backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I know this is my 12th stitch, and you want to slip stitch in that 12th stitch. Now chain 3, and we're going to be working in the same stitch where we just slip stitched. You want to insert your hook, pull up a loop. Do that 2 more times. So yarn over, insert your hook in that same stitch, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop. Now you want to go into the next stitch. So yarn over, go into the next stitch and pull up a loop. Then yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop. Yarn over, go into that same stitch. I said next stitch, but I mean we're only working in these 2 front stitches. So now you have, in the original slip stitch area, you pulled up 3 times, and then in this one you pulled up 3 times. You should have 13 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 13 loops. Sometimes it fights, but most of the time it doesn't. Then once you pull through all 13 loops, you want to chain 3 and then go back into that same stitch and slip stitch, and that will anchor down your first petal. Then you want to slip stitch in the next stitch and chain 3. Every time you begin your next petal, you'll always slip stitch to the next stitch, chain 3, and then now this will become your new stitch that you'll start doing your puff stitch in. So go ahead and yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. You'll do that 3 times. Once you do, yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then do that 2 more times. 13 loops on your hook, pull through all 13 loops, chain 3, and slip stitch. And then slip stitch in your next stitch, chain 3, then yarn over. I don't think I yarned over the first time I did the stitch over here. I don't remember, but if I didn't, you were supposed to. So always yarn over before you go into the chain 3, the place where you slip stitched in chain 3. And you'll do that 3 times. And then go into your next stitch 3 times. Then pull through all 13 loops, chain 3, slip stitch. Then slip stitch in your next stitch, chain 3, and then you're going to want to continue this all the way around. And at the end you'll look like this because it's from the back. You'll have 6 petals. So I'm going to go ahead and do this last one, and then I'm going to show you how you do connection. The very first flower that you do will be completed though. So you go ahead and you complete the whole thing, and then when you get your next flower. So if you want to use a different color for the next flower, get the next flower and get it up to where you have 4 petals. So when you have 4 petals done and you only have 2 petals left, come back and I will show you how to do the connection. But first you need to finish this first petal and then get it to this spot, because I want to show you how to make connections. So go ahead and pause the video, catch up to me, and then I'll show you how to make a connection. Okay, so I have my flower to the 4th, so I'm going to show you how to attach it to your first flower that you make. Your first one will always be complete. You'll always be doing your connections from the puff side of the flower, not the front side. That's going to be the side that everybody will see, though you can make the puff side your main side if you want. It's up to you. But your connections will be made from this side. So each puff petal will have the hole here at the top where you brought all of your loops together, your 13 loops you pull through, and you always create this one hole at the top. Then on the sides here you have your beginning chain 3 before you started your puff, and then your chain 3 that you made to anchor it on this side. Now we're going to be using the middle cluster hole that you created in your chain 3 where you ended and you anchored it down. So you won't be using the very first chain 3 that you did to make the connection. So once you get to your 4th petal and you pull through all 13 loops, don't chain 3 yet. You want to get your petal, your other petal, insert it in that cluster stitch hole and come out the chain 3 hole. And then you want to grab up your yarn. Make sure you don't grab it in front like that. Make sure you come from the back. You want your yarn to be from the back. And then you want to yarn over and pull that through. Whoops, sorry, I'm so close, it's really easy to get out of camera. So you want to yarn over and pull through that cluster hole and then through the loop on your hook. And now they're connected. Now you want to continue your flower petal as normal. So after you pull through all 13 loops, the next step was chaining 3 and then slip stitching to anchor. So slip stitch in your next stitch as normal and chain 3 because we're going to start our next petal. 1, 2, 3. Then the next stitch, 1, 2, and 3. Pull through all 13 loops. Now we're at the spot to make the second connection. So I'm going to continue in the direction that I crochet. I crochet right to left, so I'm going to naturally keep going this direction. So I have my flower. I'm going to grab up my next petal. To me, it'll be to the left. For you left-handers, it'll be to your right. And again, insert your hook into the top cluster hole and out the side chain 3 hole. Then you pull through that and then pull through the loop on your hook, and then you'll continue your petal as normal by chaining 3 and slip stitching to finish the petal. Now slip stitch in the next and finish your last petal. Your last petal will be a full petal. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Pull through all 13 loops. Chain, go through that last loop here. There we go. Chain 3 and slip stitch. And then go ahead and slip stitch in that very first spot. So that way you have the same color. If not, and you end it here without connecting it to the color here, then you'll have a gap where there won't be the same color. So always slip stitch in that very first stitch where you do your initial chain 3. Then what you do, go ahead and chain 1, leaving about 3 inches, cut your yarn and pull through. Now, since I have all these tails, this would be a good spot to show you how to hide these, because you will have a lot of tails in this pattern, at least for the flowers you will. So you should look at creating the flower is also hiding the tail at the end. I always hid my tails. Every single time I finished connecting a flower, I would hide the tail. That way I wouldn't have to come back and have 100 tails, not to mention they wouldn't get in the way, because you really need to be able to see to make the correct connection and whatnot. And they're this small, so you're always going to have a bunch of tails in your way if you don't hide them after. So the very center one, the one that's connected to the middle area, I like to go down the stitches on that side. As you go through a few times, because I don't want my tail when I cut it to be too short, because then it'll pop out and then I can't do anything with it. So I just do it in 3 sections at least. Hide it through, and then the very last one you can even go back one more just to give that extra less of a chance for it to come loose, and then cut your tail. And what I was doing was I was stretching my project, because you want to, every time you hide a tail, you always want to stretch it before you cut it. And then the puff stitches, how I hide my tails there is I'll go through, don't go too deep, because if you go too deep, you'll come out this other side like this, and then when you pull through, you can see, you'll see the string on that side and it looks ugly. So be sure whenever you're doing this that you don't go too deep, but deep enough, so it's just going to take learning. I usually try to go to the bottom and just go through a couple of puffs like this. You can even check on the other side. I didn't go through. Hide it there and always go back in another direction. And then I just pull my work a little bit and cut my tail. And that's how you'll hide all the tails in this project. I'm going to go ahead and hide my other one, and then I'll show you how to attach to finish this row and then start your next one. Okay, so when you're making the bottom of your sweater, you're going to be making like, if you're making the same size as my daughter, so let's just use that as an example. I made 16 flowers. So once I made 15 flowers and I had one more, I needed to make one more, but I needed to do a connection to both of them. I needed to complete the ring. So to complete your ring, when you come to your 16th flower, or the last flower that you want to use to make your connection, you're going to make your first petal as normal. Then you're going to get to your second petal, pull through all 13 loops, and now you're ready to make a connection. So you're going to grab up one side of your ring of flowers, and you're going to connect it as usual, going in through that top cluster out the side. You chain 3, pull through, chain 3, and then you're going to drop that other flower and finish your petal, then start your next. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, pull through all 13 loops, then grab your flower up again, make your second connection, chain 3, drop that flower, slip stitch to connect. Now you have those 2 connections made, and now if you've noticed on the other flowers, you have your top and bottom petal only. Your side ones will be connected. So this bottom one here will be our bottom petal. Now we need to make that loose top petal that won't be connected at anything. So I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch in my next stitch and make this petal real quick. 1, 2, 3, then in the next stitch 2, 3, pull through all 13 loops, chain 3, slip stitch to finish the petal, slip stitch in the next stitch, chain 3. Now we're making the petal that we'll use to connect on this side. One, 2, and 3, pull through all 13 loops. Now you want to grab up your other side of your, remember you always want to make the connections with the back facing you. So at this point you'll have your whole line like facing you from behind. And you'll want to make your connection like this. So I'm on this side, this will connect this petal. Then I'll be making my next petal here, which I will connect to this petal. I'm working from right to left because I'm right-handed. So the first one will be this one. And I'll slip stitch to connect it. And as you can see, it's going the right direction. But you'll also want to just pull it up because you're going to have to crochet with it like this. So once you make your connection, turn it the right way to face you. Finish your petal. And then slip stitch to the next one. You're going to do this last petal here. Slip through all 13, and now you can lay it back down the way it's supposed to. Find your next connection, which is this petal here, and then connect it as normal. You're going to want to flip it. Whoops. Didn't do it right. To make this round connections difficult. Okay, I'm going to lay it facing me this way just for a second so I can get my yarn correct. Okay, now I can pick it up right. So it's facing like this, but if you pick it up, you can easily see the connection right there. That's going to make it so much easier. And slip stitch like this. Chain 3 and then connect to make that last petal, and then don't forget, go ahead and slip stitch in that first. There's a little hole here, but I don't go there, I go right where I slip stitched. It gives it better look. Cut your yarn, leave it about 3 inches, and there you go. That would be how you would connect your first row, and it would be like this, one big ring. Now I'm going to show you how to do the connection on your next row. Okay, once you have your ring connected, then remember you're going to be connecting from this side of your project. So let's just say, ignore these flowers here because this is going to be what you'll need for the final connection when you've made all your way around to your flowers, and then now you'll reach up to here. So just ignore this. This is the connection that you're going to be needing to make next. What you need to do is go in like you did before. Make sure your puff flowers are facing you here. Go into that top cluster stitch on top and out the chain 3 space, and then you'll connect it as usual. Whoops, my loop got a little too loose. So I'm going to make my connection. Chain 3, drop your flowers, pick up your flower you're working on, and slip stitch, and then slip stitch in your next one, chain 3, start making your other petal, get it to that spot where you have to pull through all 13 loops, pull through all 13 loops. Now we're going to be making our second connection, and your second connection will be made using the connection. Let me get a little closer for you. Using this connection for your my pointer. Connections here between the flowers here, you're going to be using that. So you're going to go right into this big old space here, and you're going to be using this as a stitch. So let me go in the, get my yarn. Okay, so now that I pulled through all 13 loops, I'm going to go under, make sure that your yarn is on the back side of your hook, not in front of your hook, and go under, go into that big old space under that connection stitch and pull through that space and then through your loop on your hook, and then chain 3, finish that petal by slip stitching. Then we'll go into our next, make our next petal. Pull through all 13 loops. Then you want to go ahead and lay it down, and you can see when you lay it down that naturally it's going to fall right there on the next top petal that's not connected. So once you make your connections here in between on the connection of the two petals, your next one will be the top petal. Again, make sure that your yarn is on the back side of your loop. Did I say loop? Back side of your hook. Then go into that top cluster part and then out the chain 3. Slip stitch through that, then slip stitch through the loop, chain 3, and then you can finish that petal. Then slip stitch into the next, chain 3, make your next petal. Pull through all 13 loops. Then again, you can lay your project flat again. Probably this way would be best. And as you can see, there's no, now you can't see, can you? When you get close, it gets harder to stay in frame. As you can see, there's nothing left for it to connect to here. So there'll only be 3 connections on this very first flower on the second row, and one of the top petals, the connection, and then the top petal of the next. So then you just want to finish your last remaining petals, which is 2 petals. One, 2, 3. We'll do all 13 loops, chain 3. I probably shouldn't leave it like that. For some reason it didn't pull through that very last loop. So I just want to make sure I do that. I have to grab the loop up itself. There we go. There we go. Chain 3. Then I'm going to slip stitch in that very first, leaving about 3 inches. Cut your yarn and then turn and go ahead and hide your tails. Do that as part of the flower, and then when you're ready to make your next connection, remember you're going to be facing this side. Okay, to make your second connection on your second row, you're going to grab up the side petal here, make your first connection. And then your second connection will be the connection in between here. So you'll go again into this big hole, come out here. And then your next connection will be this big old hole connection here. And then the other one should fall on the top petal. So you're pretty much always going to have top petal connection here, top petal to connect this first row. But now you're going to be adding in the side petal of the flowers. Now you're going to be adding. So the first flower that you add on the second row will only have 3 connections. The rest will have 4 because it'll have those 3 connections you have for here, plus you're going to be adding the side. Going to be adding that side petal. And I always do my very first petal as a complete one. And then I got my second one going. Just pull through all 13 loops. Then you'll start with the side petal first. So you're going to go into that cluster, come out the side chain, pull through, and chain 3 and finish that petal. Then start your next petal. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Pull through all 13 loops. Then now you're going to go into that big old connection. The next 2 connections will be in a connection like that will be on the connection spot. So you'll be going to that big old stitch there and finishing your petal, starting your next. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, pull through all 13 loops. Now again, the next petal will be, next connection will be on this connection, so go into that big old space again and make the connection there. Then finish this petal, then start your next. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, pull through all 13, then lay it down. You can see naturally it's falling into place where you know you need to make a connection there too on the top petal. If you're not sure, always lay it down. So if I'm crocheting like this, then I want to flip it like this. Find that top stitch, then finish my petal. Slip stitch in the next, then you'll have one more petal here to make, which I believe is your 6th one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. This will be your final petal for this flower. So I'm just going to go ahead and complete it. There's no other connections to be made with that one on that side. Okay. So you're going to come up to a point where you're going to go all the way around, and then you're going to come back up to this last space on the 2nd row where you need to do all the connections except the very top one. So you're going to start off making a connection on the side petal, then here on the connection, and then on this connection, then on this connection, and then this side petal. So that's how you're going to do all the connections. Side petal, connection on the connection, connection on the connection, connection on the connection, side petal. So go through there and get all of them. The only thing that's loose will be the very top petal on this row, just like you see here. Imagine that these two had one. So connect all of them except for this top one in this space. And then your next row will also be the same. You'll connect on 3 spaces, and then you'll be doing exactly what you did here, just on the next row. So this row is just a repeat of your next row. So showing you this row shows you from all your rows. Okay, so I'm going to make a connection on my first side petal, then slip stitch to connect, slip stitch there, slip stitch in the next, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, make my second part here, 1, 2, 3, then pull through all 13. Okay, now I'm going to be going into that first connection. Then making my next petal. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, pull through all 13 loops. At least try to. I have a little part there that's not being very nice. One little piece of string can be what stops you from pulling through. I had like almost no issue at all with the regular yarn I was using. Anyway, so go ahead and lay it down a second. Well, I'm going to, so I can show you. So I just did my 2 connections on my flower or side petal, this first connection. Now as you can see, it falls in line to where next connection with this petal needs to be in this connection. So I'm just going to go right into that big old space, pull up a loop, pull it through the loop. Did I do that? Yeah, I just got to go this way. Then chain 3. And make your next petal. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And again, you can lay it down and see that now this next place where you have a connection between flowers will be your next connection. So you're going to go, I'm right-handed, so I need to go this way. Oh, I'm right. I'm trying to do this on camera to show you. It's making it feel a little unnatural. Okay, so there we go. So I have my pulled through all my 13 loops. Then I can pick this up here by this big old hole I'm going to be using. Just go under it. Go under, pull through that big old space, pull through the loop on your hook, chain 3. See, these tails really get in your way if you don't hide them. Then you're going to be making your last petal. Pull through all 13 loops, and then your final connection is this one trying to poke at you right here. It's the side petal. And you can see now that we just did our final connection. Now the only one that's not connected is the top petal, just like here. So I'm going to finish my flower here. Cut my yarn. And that will be, let me back up just a bit. Okay. And that will be essentially how you do your first row and then your second row, and then you'll repeat how you connected the flowers on the second row. We're going to use these 3 connections, the top petal, the connection here, and the top petal. Make your first flower there again, and then attach it using 4 stitches like I showed you last time. You'll be using 4 of the stitches to go all the way around until you get to your very last one again, and then you'll have to connect all of them again just like I just showed you, except for that very top petal. So I did this until I had 5 rows of flowers.